morning, guys. Today we will cover the Middle Ages, but we will cover only the historical part. We'll see if this method works best or better than the other one. So we will cover this part, and in tomorrow's lecture we will cover the others. So we can start by saying that the medieval age or Middle Ages spans roughly from 500 to 1500 AC, bridging the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the Renaissance. So historians divide it into three periods: the early Middle Ages, so from 500 to 1000, the High Middle Ages, 1100 1300, and the Late Middle Ages, so 1300 to 500. It was a time of major transformations across Europe, marked by the rise of kingdoms, the influence of the church, and significant cultural shifts. We will start by saying that historians let it start from the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So in 476 ACE, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the German leader Odoacer, signaling the collapse of the Roman rule in the West. They created a power vacuum, leading to political fragmentation, as you can see in the map, and the rise of barbarian kingdoms. Roads fell into despair, and urban declined, and literacy decreased. So we can say that the Roman Empire can now be divided into four major regions, and we'll see why later. Let's start with the early Middle Ages, so often called the Dark Ages. This term is debated and it's now starting to be debunked. But anyway, the early Middle Ages, so Europe divided among warrior tribes. However, the new cultures formed Roman, Christian, and Germanic roots. We can see here. The Franks united much of the Western Europe. So we can see from this image here, from the map, the Frankish kingdom is the blue one in the northwest. So later, Charlemagne, which in Italian is called Carlo Magno, expanded the Carolingian Empire. So from the blue from before, we can see now the empire, and was crowned emperor by the Pope in 800, reviving the idea of a Western Roman Empire. His reign marked a cultural revival known as the Carolingian Renaissance. Now, the role of the church. I was debated if making this much longer, but I tried to cut it short. So we'll say the most important things. In the early Middle Ages, the Catholic Church became the unifying force in the medieval Europe. The Pope held immense power, often rivaling kings. Monasteries, like those following the rule of Saint Benedict, preserved knowledge, right? And served as hospitals, schools, and libraries. Latin remained the language of the church and learning. So we can say that the Latin, the Roman language, still was the most important and in literature. Now, feudalism, manorialism. Feudalism structures society around land and loyalty. Kings granted fiefs to lords who had vassals and knights beneath them. It's like a pyramid, while serfs worked the land. Manorialism was the economic side, with self sufficient manors producing everything they needed locally. So each of these small villages had like a king, lords, vassals, knights, and then serfs. So it's like a pyramid, and everything here can be seen as a modern city state that was completely self sufficient. This system dominated Europe from about the 9th to the 13th centuries. Now, oh, from the late 700s, Vikings from Scandinavia raided and then settled parts of Europe, including England, Ireland, and France. Their longships allowed inland attacks via rivers. The attack of Lindisfarne Monastery in 793 AC marked the beginning of the Viking Age. Some settled permanently from the regions like Normandy. Now keep in mind Normandy because we will talk about the Mont Saint Michel Abbey. So, before we move further into the specific architectural tradition, like Romanesque and Gothic, I want to pause and show you a building that captures the imaginations and complexity of the Middle Age. Mont Saint Michel Abbey, off the coast of Normandy in France. I visited it last week and I have photos. So I will upload all the photos of the details, of the architectural details, and everything else on the drive so you can all catch up what I'm saying. So it was built on a rocky tidal island. The abbey was first founded in the 8th century, remember this, during the early Middle Ages, when Christianity was spreading across Western Europe. It was originally a small oratory, but over the centuries, especially in the 11th and the 20th, it evolved into a massive, tired abbey complex. What's fascinating here is how it reflects almost everything we've talked about so far, yet stands so far away from it. Mont Saint Michel is both a classical Romanesque building and an architectural exception. It's typical in its use of Romanesque elements. So we're talking about rounded arches, barrel vaults, massive stone walls built to endure time and conflict. These traits reflect stability and spiritual authority that the church sought to project into the early medieval world. But as you can see, it uses a classical, typical architectural style for the first part, but it's also atypical because it rises dramatically on a rocky island, forced to adapt vertically, obviously, due to the limited space and terrain. This results in a multi-level structure, crypts and chapels at the base, as you can see in the center top image, with the Abbey Church crowning at the summit, a literal and symbolic spiritual ascent from earth to heaven. Its isolated, fortified location, surrounded by quicksands and sea, also sets it apart. It was both a place of worship and a military stronghold, embodying the insecurity and spiritual ambition of the early Middle Ages. So we can say that Mont Saint Michel becomes not just a church, but a vision of the medieval world in stone, hierarchical, remote, and elevated. Very good. Now we will start about the High Middle Ages. Europe entered a period of growth. The population doubled from 40 million to 80 million. Towns expanded and trade flourished. Innovation like the heavy plow, the horse collar, and the free field crop rotation improved agriculture. Cathedrals and universities emerged, reflecting newfound cultural vitality. Life varied by class, as we can imagine. Peasants worked the land, owned duties to their lord, and lived in basic homes. Townspeople included merchants and artisans. Nobles trained for war. Women's roles were mostly domestics. Meanwhile, festivals, religious rituals, and oral storytelling were central to the community life. We have to imagine that kings began consolidating power. So in England, we're talking about William the Conqueror, defeated by Harold in the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Now, there is a very important piece of history here and design. I will upload it also on the drive so you can see it. It's a magnificent piece of cloth, all decorated with the history of William and Harold. This established the Norman rule. So by 1215, King John was first to sign the Magna Carta, limiting royal power. We can see it here in the image. In France, the Capetitians, another family that ruled that after the Carolingians, steadily expanded royal authority from Paris. This is also the period of the Crusades. So the first crusade launched in 1095 by Pope Urban II aimed to reclaim Jerusalem. While it temporarily succeeded, most crusades failed militarily. They did, however, reopen trade routes, increase east-west contact, and expose Europeans to new ideas, goods, and technologies like paper and compass navigations. By the 12th centuries, university emerged in Bologna, in Italy, Paris, in France, and Oxford, in England. Scholars practiced scholasticism, trying to reconcile faith with reason. Thomas Aquinas was a key figure. He was an Italian, literally, but his correct name is Tommaso d'Aquino. Education became more formalized, with theology, law, medicine, and philosophy at the core. But then we have to talk about the Black Death. So the Black Death, likely spread by fleas on rats, killed an estimated of 25 to 50 million Europeans, about one-third of the population. It arrived via Genoese ships, so in the port of west Italy, which is called Genova. The pandemic caused labor shortages, peasant revolts, and a crisis of faith, which deeply shaped the foundation of medieval society and the role of the church. But this is still not enough, because we have to talk about the Hundred Years' War. This war was between England and France, and it lasted 116 years. From you can see the dates on the screen. Fought over claims to the French throne. It features major battles like Agincourt in 1415 and heroes like Joan of Arc, who helped lift the siege of Orleans in 1429. The war advanced military tactics and ended feudal-style armies. Let's start with the late Middle Ages. So, the 14th century brought famine, plague, and church crises, like the Great Schism from 1379 to 1417. But out of the chaos, new ideas formed. Humanism and classical revival paved the way for the Renaissance. The printing press, 1440, by Gutenberg, transformed communication and education. The Middle Ages laid the groundwork for modern Europe. Nation states, university, legal system, and religious institutions. Despite its hardships, it was a time of slow but steady growth, cultural blending, and innovation that continues to influence us today. I put here some movies recommendation as I do usually. And they're all animated movies, and I can say to you that I grew up with this one and really gives an idea. It's like a romanticized idea of what medieval times were like. So I strongly suggest you to go watch it. So for the historical part, it's all. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the architectural part, and I can say to you that we will start with early Christian and then study Byzantine, Islamic, Romanesque, and then with a main focus on the Gothic architecture. See you tomorrow!